Now I want to say a few words in English. Did you understand that, Ambassador Huckabee? I don't know. I follow every one of your words. You could follow every one of mine. I followed you when you said the other day that the problem in Gaza is that not starvation for the Palestinians, and certainly for Hamas. Hamas, you said, needs Ozempic. Well, it could be funny, but it isn't. It could be funny because it's not funny because the deliberate starvation policy, the only deliberate starvation policy that we see in Gaza is the starving of our hostages. And you can see that when you look at their captors and you see our emaciated hostages and these corpulent guards, tormentors. And that's a way to puncture the falsehoods, because the battle, the eighth front that I was talking about, is the battle to puncture the lies and bring out the truth. Israel has no starvation policy. It had and has a policy to separate the civilians from combatants on two fronts. The first front is the actual battle zones. We have sent millions and millions of text messages, phone calls. This has never happened before in the war, that the army that is fighting terrorists in an urban environment calls on the civilians in enemy territory to leave, and the enemy shoots them if they try to leave. And then Israel is blamed for genocide. That's ridiculous. It is a blatant falsehood, and one of the first and most important lies that has to be exposed. The genocidal element is Hamas. The genocidal element is the Iranian axis that openly calls for the annihilation and extermination of Israel and many Jews. It calls for the death of America, that's true. But people don't understand that it begins with their attempt to destroy Israel, because we stand in their way. We're the only force in the Middle East that fights Iran. And until recently, we were the only force in the world that fought Iran. And I very much appreciate President Trump's bold decision to send those B-2s to help Israel fight against this common enemy. So the first false accusation is genocide. The second false accusation is starvation. From the start, from the second day of the war, we said there has to be another separation between civilians and combatants, and that is that we supply humanitarian aid to the combatants. Even though we're in a very small and tight urban space, we'll do every effort to do so, and we did. If we had a starvation policy, now nearly 2 years after the beginning of the war, everybody in Gaza would be dead. But they're not, because that's not our policy. Our policy is the exact opposite. We sent in 2 million tons, 1.9 million tons of food and medical aid into Gaza, because that's how we conduct the war. Until recently, that is, when Hamas began to loot, rob, kill, take over humanitarian aid. We wanted to put in our own system, American companies who will distribute the aid directly to the Palestinian civilians. Again, Hamas came in, shot their way in, created riots, created every interdiction possible, and so we had a period of deprivation. Hamas caused the hunger problem. Hamas caused the shortage problem, and Israel is blamed, again falsely. We are now engaged in a humanitarian surge of offering safe, secure routes for distribution of food. We're doubling and perhaps quadrupling the number of distribution points that will be safeguarded, and we're doing airdrops, invite other countries to join us. That's what Israel is doing. And as a result, now hundreds of trucks go in daily, and that hunger problem, that deprivation problem, has basically been solved. What has not been solved, what is not stopped, is a campaign of lies. And especially those photographs of 3 children, one of them in the New York Times, the reputable New York Times. Nobody's laughing. They put a photograph of an emaciated child, and they said this is the cause of hunger. He's embraced by his mother. Of course, the mother is not emaciated. The brother is not emaciated. But this child was not emaciated from hunger. He was emaciated by a genetic disease, cerebral palsy. And two other children, same thing, made the great pictures and so on. Horrific, heart-wrenching pictures, because it does tear your heart out when you see this. And they were also suffering from genetic diseases. But two of the three were actually taken care of by Israel. We let out one of these children go to an Italian hospital, and thank God, he recovered there. The other is incurable. He was in our hospitals, but there's nothing you can do about it. So this is a complete reversal of lies, and I don't take it lightly. I think this battle for truth has tragic historical antecedents. My father was a great historian of the Jewish people, and a great historian of the Jews in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, every single massacre that the Jews suffered was preceded by a campaign of vilification and lies. We were accused of spreading disease, vermin, to the Gentiles. We were accused of poisoning the wells. We were accused of killing Christian children for their blood, to bake matzos, for Passover. These lies, horrific as they were, propelled anti-Semitism right into the 20th century, into the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust. And the Nazis pretty much said the same thing about disease, about well poisoning, and so on. Well, that same phenomenon we see today. What the Jewish people were accused of in the Middle Ages and the subsequent centuries is what the Jewish state is now being accused of. There's only one difference. Then we had no defense. Now we have a country, now we have an army, and now we fight back against our tormentors. And now we have a great ally in the form of President Trump and many of the American people. Yes, some have fallen victim to these lies and have followed them and swallow hook, line, and sinker. And I'm talking about, all these lies of Hamas, statistics of Hamas, false pictures of Hamas. But many Americans have not, most Americans have not. They recognize that Israel stands for the same values as America. They recognize that we are fighting the barbarians at the gate. And when I say barbarians, this is not hyperbole. It's not only the goal of destroying Israel, it's even the method that they use to murder and mutilate the heathen, as they call them. And we saw that on October 7th in the murder and rape and beheadings. The murder of women that you have just raped, and the beheadings of men, and the mutilation of bodies, and the burning of babies, and the taking of over 250 hostages, grandmothers and their grandchildren, Holocaust survivors. That is the passion, and the fact that they went with GoPro cameras so people could boast about it. There is something wicked and evil in this. And yet you have on American campuses, the people, even the schools that I went to in Boston, I went to Dershowitz, you were in Harvard, I was at MIT. Can you say something in their defense right now? No. Yeah, I figured. Neither can I, because I think it's atrocious. Yet you have people there siding with Hamas, siding river to the sea, basically the river to the sea. You'd think that this is a huge country. The river is the Jordan River. It's hardly a river, it's a stream. I'm telling you that. And the sea is a few kilometers from here. In between sandwiches the state of Israel, this tiny, giant country, It's a giant country, but it's tiny in dimension. And they basically say, wipe it off the map. And they don't understand what they're fighting for. Maybe some of them do. But our people who join them don't even know what they're talking about. And it's not only the savagery of Hamas and the Iranian terror axis. In Syria, just a few weeks ago, we stopped the savage massacre of Druze, a non-Islamic sect. And we saw And these people who hate them hate us and hate America, and they chant the same thing: death to America, death to Israel, death to the Jews, death to the heathen. And the Jews happen to be the heathen, a small minority. And they went into their town of Sweda, and they butchered the men. They raped the women, the nurses, and then shot them. They burnt babies, and they added a few things. They added it when you saw it live, and you have to see it to understand this. I mean, you see a Druze civilian wounded lying on the ground, and one of these fanatics, these unbelievable savages, they go in, knife the guy, tear out his heart, and then eat it. And it takes a few seconds for death to come. So the victim has his heart eaten while it's still alive. This is savagery, this is barbarism, this is what Israel is fighting on behalf of Western civilization, on behalf of civilization. And this, the propagation of these lies, is exactly what we had in the Middle Ages. So now we have the capacity to physically defend the Jewish state, but we now have to muster all the forces that seek to defend our common civilization against this mutilation of the truth that threatens our common future. And that's why I salute Newsmax and others who stand together, stand up for the truth, are not cowed, can speak their mind, can show the facts, can stand up for our common humanity and for our common future. And if you're not ready in this day and age, especially in this day and age, to fight for freedom, you will lose it. If you do not fight for your civilization, you will lose it. We are prepared to fight, and I know America is prepared to stand with us, and I salute you for doing the same. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.